What comes to mind when you think of the word closure? One definition is the act or process of closing something, such as a relationship with an estranged person in your life. Does that sound negative to you? What emotions does it evoke? Another definition states that closure brings a sense of peace, understanding, and release that comes with accepting that a relationship has ended. That's the one I'll focus on today. Closure in this instance is focused upon the relationship ending. Think of that relationship that has caused so much pain in your life. Do you want that relationship to continue? Or would you rather focus on rebuilding a new one with that person? Today's episode is one where I'll focus on how to close the chapter on that painful relationship as you hand over the pen to God and allow Him to write the chapters that follow. Let's dive in. Find the full transcript for this episode plus resources for women at Estrangement, Turning Pain into Peace at beckykolb.com/25. You're listening to Estrangement, Turning Pain into Peace, a podcast and free resource for women with estranged relationships, created by me, host and coach Becky Kolb. My superpower is to help you turn your emotional pain into peace by conquering guilt and shame, rebuilding self-confidence, and developing healthy boundaries. I've dealt with estranged relationships most of my life and know both the pain and the peace. Subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss a thing. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Closure sounds harsh, doesn't it? When you close the door in a relationship, it may seem as though you're ending it forever, and that may be the outcome. But there are other possibilities. Growing up, I recall my parents saying, "Close the door, you're letting all the cold air in." Or in the summer, it was the stifling air. We close the door to protect our home from unwanted, harsh temperatures. Have you ever considered closure as a protection? Reading the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, I learned that people have vastly different methods on dealing with conflict in a relationship. As women, we want to talk it through until the bitter end. We want to know what caused it, why, and how to fix it. Men just want to retreat to their internal man cave and process. And if we try to enter that cave while they're processing, well, let's just say the outcome isn't good. You want closure on the issue that created the estrangement, right? And if both of you want that, then that's great. It can be an easy fix. But realistically, that's not the case. So let's look at closure, what it is and isn't. What it is, closure in our conversation today is ending a relationship as it stands. It's creating peace as you release the outcome to God. Forgiveness is part of that process that will allow you to move on. Finally, it's understanding that the relationship today isn't healthy for either of you. What it isn't. Closure isn't necessarily a permanent end to the relationship. It is not letting someone off the hook or holding a grudge. And it isn't an admission of sole responsibility for the relationship ending. Think of that last book you read. One chapter ends and another begins. Often, the new chapter doesn't start where the last one ended. Authors may introduce new characters or situations to the story. Once you've done all you can to mend an estranged relationship, rather than stew in shame, guilt, anger, and bitterness, it's time to close that chapter. Move on in your story to other characters and experiences. New relationships will emerge as old ones come to the forefront. Embrace your story as you let go of the emotional pain of the estrangement. Books we love often push a character back until much later in the story when they reappear in a different light. Think of the prodigal son in the biblical account found in Luke 15. When this son comes back into the story, he's a changed person, humbled by life and ready for a new relationship with his family. Keep this concept in mind as you let go. You aren't expelling that person from your life forever. You're letting go of them as the relationship exists today. You've heard time heals. Furthermore, you're giving both of you a fresh start. As you let go of the pain and cease to replay those hurtful words, you're postured to experience transformation in your life. When you allow closure, you're giving a gift to yourself and the other person. No more running to the man cave of conflict to understand and resolve the issue. You allow that time and distance to bring healing to both of you. Time doesn't really heal all wounds, but it certainly helps. You'll both benefit from the break in the relationship as you allow the old hurtful words to dissolve. Now you have no control over how other people will use their time, but my advice to you is to be wise about your life. Where do you need to grow? Mentally, physically, and spiritually. Focus on you to ensure that you're healing well. Whatever caused the estrangement is a focal point for you. Analyze your part and consider how you might manage the situation differently today. You've given the gift of time to the other person, and hopefully they'll do the same. Even if they aren't focused on their involvement in the estrangement, life moves on for them too. And as we see in Luke 15, sometimes lessons of humility, hunger, and a desire for restoration may be the very thing that heals. I'll share my story of closure with you. Recalling the estrangement with my family following my divorce and the circumstances that surrounded that, those relationships were ice cold. It was as though they had been plunged into the icy waters with a barrier to prevent relief. The emotional pain was intense. My focus was not only on the circumstances that created this estrangement, but also on painful memories of earlier years in my life. The depth of rejection and isolation was great, and I didn't see a way through those murky waters. Like me, you may have past choices that were hurtful to others. You may also have a valid reason for pain that was inflicted upon you. You aren't perfect. No one is. And typically, the greatest pain is family, abandonment, and rejection. Time was a healing agent in my case, as both my family and I grew spiritually and mentally. Moreover, that space created the next chapter of reconciliation and restoration. Today, those relationships are stronger than ever. Closing the chapter on a relationship can be the healing balm you need as you move on and allow them to do the same. Following the closure of a chapter of estrangement, you may experience a long pause and the realization that it could be permanent. I encourage you to maintain hope, not an obsessive one where you look daily for signs of emergence, a quiet hope that one day you'll have a healthy new relationship with that person. Several long years elapsed before the ice began to thaw and opportunities arose for my family and I to reconnect. Awkward best describes what I felt initially, but we had to break the ice, and eventually love, forgiveness, and healed hearts melted it all away. Had the back and forth accusations and bitter words continued, I'm certain reconciliation would not have been the outcome. Do you forget the past pain? I wish we could. But God is the only one I know that is able to both forgive and forget. What I can tell you is that pain no longer has any control or influence over our relationship. It's in the past, where it belongs. Are you ready for closure? No one understands better than me what it feels like to close that chapter. You worry that it's permanent. Will you see this person again or have a conversation? What if something tragic happens? The very tragic 9/11 incident happened during my estrangement with family. I was sure that would bring about reconciliation, as people all around the globe were coming together. That time passed with no communication, and I was certain then that reconciliation would never occur. Looking back, God wasn't finished working in our lives. We weren't ready at that time to reconnect in a healthy way, and I learned that God's timing is always superior to mine. I don't know your story, but I sure can feel your emotional pain. Although our stories may differ, the same God will write the next chapter with you and your estranged loved one. If you're stuck with no movement, consider closing the chapter and letting that old, hurtful relationship fade into the annals of time. And like the cocoon, Embrace the protection of God's hand on your life and theirs until you both emerge as the butterfly, free and ready to connect in a beautiful new way. Until next time, consider that closure on this chapter is God's way of beginning the healing process so that a new relationship can emerge. Thanks for listening to Estrangement, Turning Pain into Peace. Estrangement is a difficult topic for many, and I applaud you for tuning in. Don't forget to check out earlier episodes too, and please share this with others who may need to hear. And if you're getting value, I would appreciate a short review.